Hey guys, welcome back to See You at USC. This is sadly the last Judy Tuesdays of the season, but no worries, we'll be going out in style with the LA-based influencer and fashion queen who's been featured on New York Times and GQ. In the studio with us tonight is the founder of Angel Food Style, Sophie Elkus. Welcome back to See You guys. We're sitting down with the beautiful and the fabulous Sophie Elkus. Thank you so much for coming, Sophie.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So also welcome back to USC, guys. Sophie is actually a USC alum, class of 2014.
I am. It
So
feels like
welcome
yesterday.
back. Just like yesterday. So you've, in this short period of time since graduating, been featured on Refinery 29, GQ, and so much more. Tell us how you got started with the blog, and was the name Angel Food Style a spin on Angel Food Cake?
It was not a spin on Angel Food Cake, but you're not the first to ask me that. And I can touch on this later, but I always think if I were to rename it now, I would have chosen something completely different, but it just goes to show where you are at a certain moment in time. But it is kind of nice to have a food reference. I don't do any food content, but maybe in the future. But yes, I started while at USC. I was in my junior year, and I thought of the idea, I think it was the summer before my sophomore and junior year, but by the time it was actually up and running and really underway, I was about midway through. And I had gone to a conference that was put on by Lucky magazine when it was still in existence. I don't think it is anymore. And this conference was for bloggers and brands and people in the industry to connect. And at that point, I was still a student, and a friend of mine who knew I was interested in writing and in TV and fashion and all these areas recommended that I go and just meet people and kind of see if I could gain some career advice and some ideas there. And I went and I met a couple bloggers, and for some reason I thought that if you were a successful blogger, and given this was I guess a few years ago now and bloggers have totally evolved since then, but a few years ago at least, I thought if you were a successful blogger or an influencer, you must have a degree and you must, have worked in PR for 6 years beforehand or had this background. And I really didn't realize that a lot of these companies or businesses were started out of people's basements or bedrooms, and it's such a ground up thing that you can do. But I remember meeting a few girls who did this, and I was so inspired. I thought it was so cool. They had started their own businesses. Some of them had jobs working in PR or fashion before, but not all of them. So I remember going home that night and thinking I could do this. Like I wanted to work in fashion anyway. I always thought I'd write for a magazine. I was majoring in journalism and PR. Mm-hmm. So I just
I'm a journalism major now too. So shout out to Annenberg.
Yeah, shout out to Annenberg. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing, but I didn't start it right away. I then did a lot of research because there's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot of the tech stuff, which I'm not good at, but coding and figuring out how to do your SEO properly, working with a web designer to get your site up, thinking of a name, and then at that point you just have the site, and if you want to turn it into a business, that's a whole nother step. Mm-hmm. Which takes time to grow. Mm-hmm. But at that point I just started it, and I figured I'll just see how this goes, and from there I'll build it. And I think the decision was very business minded from the beginning, and I knew that eventually I'd like to turn it into something that I could do as a career. So that was kind of born during my junior year, and it wasn't. I think it was about my fall semester of my senior year that it really started to pick up. Mm-hmm. Maybe 6 or 8 months into it, and that's when I started getting emails from brands, getting emails from people on other college campuses or my friends who had shared it. And I think at that point it really started to gain traction.
Right, and you've partnered with American Express, Victoria's Secret, Nordstrom's, and many other brands along the way. Did you expect your blog to take off this way?
Not at all. I mean, I certainly hoped so, but I think it's a couple of things. It's timing, first of all. Now I'm sure, as you know, there's so many blogs, so many bloggers. I go through the comments on my photos, and all of the girls are bloggers, it seems like now. So it's definitely becoming more and more saturated, but I think timing was kind of on my side, at least 4 years ago. There weren't as many in the fashion and beauty space, at least in LA. So I think I kind of caught a good wave of attention, and it was able to grow because of that. I think being in college still actually really helped me, because I had so many friends on other campuses and other schools and other states or countries who were able to share it.
So
and
you had that
you have
network.
a network. Yeah, you have a network, and that, I think that really was key at that point, at that stage at least. But no, I didn't expect to work with brands like that. And it's funny because a lot of people will email me and ask, how do I work with brands? What's the process? And it's not overnight. You have to really build your foundation and have a key audience there. And start out slow. You know, you don't work with a brand like MX right away. You have to sort of scope out local boutiques maybe and see about doing trades or partner with other bloggers to gain exposure. So there's definitely a slow build up.
See, while you were in school, basically being a student, you said, was something that kind of helped you. It helped, you know, you had that network being a USC student. But some of us want to know, how in the world did you balance being a CEO and a student at the same time?
It's a good question. I didn't always balance well, that's for sure. It took such, to be totally honest, like I wish I had a better answer, but it took a lot of time out of being social. I traveled, I did a couple fashion weeks early on, which was amazing because I met a lot of the New York companies and bloggers right away. And I was able
you
to
graced
gain
the red carpet at New York Fashion Week. Okay.
Thanks. But yeah, I had to miss some classes for that. I had to do a lot of rescheduling. I had to go and talk to all my professors, which was actually a blessing in disguise, I think, because a lot of them had no idea. And once the site sort of started gaining traction, and I'd go to them and I'd say, hey, I'm not going to be here for my exam. I'm going to, you know, shoot a campaign, or I'm going to Fashion Week. And then they'd be interested, and they'd say, oh, well, can we do a class around this? Or can we figure out how to integrate this into what everyone else might be learning or want to hear about it? So it became fun because I could share it. And a lot of the students I remember in my PR classes, especially when I neared graduating, were doing similar things. They were working for PR companies, or they wanted to, and so there was a ton of crossover there, and that was really helpful and cool.
That's awesome.
To
so
share.
The USC curriculum for journalism and PR kind of focuses a lot on social media and digital platforms, like this emerging, you know, industry for journalists and publicists. Did that kind of help you because your business is digital? And you know, do you think that really contributed to your success?
100%.
Yeah.
I think having that foundation was integral to even doing the simplest things, like writing a good pitch letter. I remember learning that here, how to structure a good letter and how to be professional and talk to people. It sounds silly, but you'd be surprised how many like awful pitch letters I get from companies or people who haven't been through a program like this, and those basic skills are so important. I think there's also such a wide range now of bloggers who come from PR backgrounds, who really know these skills and who are so professional and on it. And then you see girls who maybe they're successful, not to say they aren't successful, but they might not even have gone to college, and they don't, you know, they're learning all this for the first time. There's no like the barrier to entry is not even there. Anyone can be a blogger. If you think about it, you just need a computer and some Wi-Fi and a good eye, I guess, for style. But I think having that background was able to push me forward, and the pace was a little quicker because I was able to reach out to brands immediately, and I knew, you know, a little more what I was doing. And I felt like I had a forward-thinking eye, taking classes and learning about video content and, you know, what's next and how to stay ahead of the curve. I think that was all really important.
Okay.
Helpful, yeah.
So you have over 100K followers on Instagram, and that coveted blue check mark you've had for a while now. What advice would you give to people that are trying to brand themselves on social media?
That's a good question. I think the most common mistake that I see is that people are inspired to start sites like this or social media channels, and they want to cover everything. They want to be a food, fitness, beauty, fashion, like extravaganza. And I don't think at this point in the world of blogging that's a smart way to enter. I think it's like people what you always say, write about what you know, write about your own experience and focus on what you're good at. So if food is what you love, then be a food account. If travel is what you love, then be a travel account. But my one piece of advice, I think, is to not try to begin doing this with every topic in mind, because I think it's hard to create a name for yourself and a voice around everything, unless you are really genuinely into everything and you have experiences in all these areas. And I guess that would be one thing. But I think for me, like being an LA native has really helped me, having gone to college here. I have a home base here, and I think that has given me a unique perspective. I've done some campaigns where brands will say, oh, we really like that you're from LA. Tell us your story. Like, for example, I'm just thinking of this because it was last week, but the Beverly Center has reopened now after being totally redesigned. And I think it's been since I was here, maybe a few years ago when it started to be redesigned. And they reached out to me wanting to do a campaign together around being from LA. So that was kind of the unique aspect that I could bring to the table. And you have tons of bloggers here,
And you're in LA, you were in LA born and raised.
I'm, LA born and raised. So I think something like that is specific to me and unique. So it's always good to really think through what makes you different and focus on that, as opposed to trying to just do what everyone else is doing or be like everyone else.
So your emphasis is fashion, beauty, fitness.
Fashion, beauty. I haven't done a ton of fitness. I'd say fashion, beauty are the top categories. I'm trying to do a little more lifestyle now, just because it's what people seem to be interested in. There's only so much you can talk about fashion and beauty until people want to know, about your daily life and about fitness or what TV you watch or what it may be. So in being a little more personal, I think lifestyle kind of naturally is included.
Okay. How would you describe your style in a nutshell?
My style in a nutshell, colorful. I love, as you can see, colors and prints. I think...
I love that jacket, by the way.
Thank you.
Is the camera able to pick up on the...
You know what you call these? Ruffles?
Ruffles, yeah.
Cuts.
That's amazing.
I would say it's very colorful, positive. And when I wanted to think of a name for the site, what I really should have gone with was my own name. I think that at this point, everybody has taken every blog name. So if you start a blog, just use your own name. But I thought Angel Food to me really represented a lighthearted, positive, and happy sense of fashion. Sort of like food for, I guess you could say like the angels, food for the angels. And I had seen so many, at the time I was looking at all these blogs, and the trend was to be really monochromatic, kind of serious, like dressed like a New Yorker, wear a ton of black.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, I grew up in LA. I love color. I think fashion should be fun. It's not serious. I mean, it's art, but it's not that serious. So I think it might as well be positive and happy. And to me, that was where Angel Food came from. So I've definitely stayed true to that, although I think my style has become a little more streamlined and a little simpler since I started.
Okay. See, my style, I bounce around. I go from sometimes sophisticated to sometimes trying to be a little more trendy with the lace-up boots, like Kylie Jenner thing didn't last. Sweatpants, hair tied, chilling with no makeup on.
Sweatpants are very
They are, which I appreciate, because now you could just throw some heels on, maybe with a
Exactly.
bodysuit and wear the sweatpants. But I mean, my style's not consistent. What do you say kind of helps someone develop their personal style?
Oh, that's a good question. How to develop your personal style. I think it's two things. I think you have to be comfortable. If you're not comfortable, it shows. I always see this, like girls who maybe don't, they're not dressing like they feel inside, or they're walking in heels and they hate walking in heels, and you can tell they look miserable. Like, I think you need to be happy and comfortable. You mentioned Coachella, and it's funny because Coachella trends have gone up and down. I think at this point people just want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And you sort of see all the fringe and the studs and the excessive pieces and layering kind of fading, because at the end of the day it's a festival and you want to be happy and comfortable. So I think in starting to develop a style, think about what you're comfortable in, and I think you should challenge yourself from there. If you work in a more conservative environment, like if you're a lawyer or a doctor or whatnot, going to meetings, then obviously you have to be professional. If you work in a creative environment, then I think anything goes. I think wearing jeans, I mean, everyone wears jeans, but if you wear jeans with a few accent pieces, that's a good way to develop your style based on one piece that's comfortable and that's every day.
Okay. Well, don't go anywhere. We're going to cut to a quick commercial break and we'll talk more about fashion, beauty, and social media with Sophie Elkus. I'm glad you didn't go anywhere. We're back after a short break and we're sitting down with Sophie Elkus. So let's get a little bit more into social media talk because you did mention that your fan base is actually looking for more lifestyle, blogging from you. How has you becoming like a big social media star kind of shifted your blog because now you are this what the fans are coming for? Like they want you. You're the brand now. So it's like, how has that changed everything for you?
I mean, it's consistently gotten bigger and bigger since blogging was even around. I think the biggest change is that where brands want content is shifting, whereas, a few years ago, your blog was maybe the main attraction. Everything is on social now. So some brands will come to me and say, we're not interested in a blog post. We want just social posts. We want to do a campaign of 5 Instagram images or a video or whatnot. And that's a good and a bad thing, I would say. It's a great thing because you're so discoverable on Instagram or a social channel, and that's definitely helped me expand the business and gain visibility and collaborate with others more easily. I'd say it's a negative thing at times just because at the end of the day, your website domain is the only thing you truly own. So Instagram was down, I think yesterday, was it?
And everyone freaked out on Twitter.
Totally. So that just goes to show you never know what's going to happen. You never know what the next big platform is going to be. People can speculate, but at the end of the day, it's so worth it to always put effort into your website because that's what you only own. But that being said, social is always important and will always be important, and it's definitely helped grow my business as a whole because I think more people have found me that way.
Okay. Yeah. Do you use Snapchat?
I have Snapchat. When Instagram stories came out, I sort of became a traitor to Snapchat.
Oh, same. It's just
easier.
Yeah, it's easier, more views. Yeah.
I think from a brand perspective, it's definitely preferred just because the views are higher on Instagram stories because most people typically have a larger Instagram following than Snapchat. Mm-hmm. There are some exceptions. Yeah. But it's just easier to discover accounts like on the Explore page. I don't know if Snapchat I haven't been on it in so long. I don't know if they have a similar feature,
they have Explore for like news.
Okay,
so
exactly.
You'll see articles from BuzzFeed, etc. But Instagram has
someone had a funny analogy to this the other day that I heard, which is that when you're finding someone new on Instagram stories, it's sort of less invasive to follow someone. You can watch their story without even following them. Exactly. I'm sure a ton of my views are not people who maybe follow me. But on Snapchat, if you add someone, it's kind of like you're dating. It's like you're hitting on someone by adding them because it takes effort to go put their name in and find it. So I think for brands, they just go where the money is. They want as many views for a product that they're integrating with you or whatnot. So I think Instagram stories is, at least for me, my preferred option.
It honestly is. We might have to do a poll on this. Like, what are people leaning towards?
You guys prefer.
I'm team Instagram as well, Sophie. And now, your social media following, how does it affect your business model? So people go to your IG and then that drives traffic on your site?
Totally. I think a huge chunk of traffic comes from Instagram. It's such an integral tool. But like I said, it's always good to focus on the site. And I love to write. I have a writing background. Some bloggers don't write at all. Their posts, if you go to their site, are just photos. And it's a photo gallery or it's a travel diary or whatever. But I love to write. And for me, that's a huge part of why I even wanted to do this in the first place. I feel like that's really, you can connect with people and really share. So I prefer to spend time on the site and to have writing available that way.
Okay. So summer's coming up and people want to know what tips you have, to get those summer bodies in shape so we can drop the Photoshop and start boomeranging these summer bodies.
I love that. Drop the Photoshop and start boomerang.
Just so people know it's real. Yeah.
Exactly. So tips for summer fitness.
Yes.
I think I always say get outside. I way much prefer to do classes. If I go to the gym, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know where to begin. But I love the energy in the class, and I think we go with friends. It makes all the difference. Hiking, I love. Spin classes, I do bar and Pilates. I'll try anything. I think I have tried everything.
What are your favorite places to hike in LA?
My favorite places to hike in LA. There's a hike in the Palisades called Los Leones, which is way less discovered than Runyon if you're looking for a good place to go. Where else? There are some good ones out in Malibu. I think the Los Leones is a good one. It's a bit of a drive if you're a student here, but it's worth it.
I want to explore something new because I only really go to Runyon. Culver City Stairs is a great workout, but whoever put the stairs together was lazy.
I've never been to
some
Culver
stairs
City
are
Stairs.
like, it's tough because the stairs are so far apart, so it's like probably
So
a
it's a
great
workout.
glute workout, but
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm gonna go out to Palisades.
Check it out.
And what about like healthy eating? I saw there was a photo of you there baking what looked like some sort of vegan dessert. Now, how do I know it was vegan? I don't know, but it looked healthy.
So healthy recipes or healthy,
Or just like lifestyle, like
something you can do. I'm such a big smoothie fan. I think if you can nail down a recipe that takes 5 minutes, it's so much easier than cooking. And it's if you're pretty lazy if you don't want to make a smoothie and you have the time, but that's a really easy way to get tons of greens, just to throw whatever you have in a blender. And I'm obsessed with moon juice. It's like my weakness. Those super expensive powders. They have one for one to make you sleep at night. There's one I think for like anti-anxiety. One for, I love the one called brain dust. Like these dusts you can get at Moon Juice, and I put one of those in my smoothie with some protein powder, and I'm good to go. So I definitely recommend that for summertime.
And that's perfect for students because
Exactly.
We don't have to
Easy.
sit there and make
I made
pancakes.
a lot of smoothies in my apartment while here.
Oh, that's
For sure.
awesome.
Yes.
So, were you at Coachella this year?
I was not at Coachella this year.
Oh, wow.
I know, but
You take fantastic photos in the deserts, by the way. You
thank
look
you.
amazing. But
yeah, I skipped this year, and it's interesting. I always think about with Coachella will just continue to get bigger and bigger until people kind of break off or brands decide not to do activations there. The first time I went to Coachella was in high school, so I think I've had my fair share, and I didn't feel like I was missing out this year, but I had another opportunity that was away from the festival, so I sat this one out.
I figured you were globetrotting. See, I was just on
You're
Instagram
you
feeling
just-
the FOMO, but
no.
you were globetrotting.
No, thanks. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Coachella. I know from a brand perspective, talking to people who work with different companies, they always say it's such a big monster, and unless you have a big budget to be able to put on something there that is really going to be seen and heard, it's not even worth advertising there because it's so saturated. So you see a lot of the brands hosting houses there, or food trucks, or being on the festival grounds. They have to get special permission and go through all those steps. But I think unless you're at that level as a brand, it's probably not a good move. And as a blogger, everyone wants to do something for Coachella. I had talked to some girlfriends who are bloggers, and they say, oh, I have 8 campaigns to photograph while there. So it kind of takes the fun out of it in a way, if you think about it. But it's definitely, it's its own thing. It's a season now. It's spring season, festival season, summer season. It's huge. So
between Coachella, Lollapalooza, that one I believe is in Chicago. What's your favorite festival?
I think Coachella is my favorite festival, although I went to Outside Lands a couple years ago, and I loved that. And I think I might go back this year in San Francisco. It was interesting going to a festival where it was cooler. Like, it's kind of cold in San Francisco in August, which is when it is. So you kind of bundle up and you have beanies and scarves on, and they have a big wine and cheese tent. It's very relaxed. It's not as hectic as Coachella. The music was amazing, and it's cool being in a city. You know, if you're at Coachella, you're stuck in Indio, so it's not a bad thing. But you finish your festival day and you go home and you're nearby. But at Outside Lands, you're in San Francisco, so I think one of the cool parts was being able to go during the day and then leave and go to dinner in the city, and it becomes another experience. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard some horror stories from Coachella camping experiences, but one day try it out ourselves, and we'll take in mind comfort. Your advice.
Take in mind comfort.
Exactly. Not necessarily all the ruffles and all the extras.
Fringe. Yes.
Let's look at some of the Coachella style from this year, actually, and see what Sophie thinks. Okay, so that is Kendall at the Revolve party. Interesting. That I'm not sure what the top is.
I'm not sure either.
But I recognize that those are denim shorts. And so that's interesting. Would you say, okay, that's two off the shoulders, and then there's kind of a kind of like a little strap going on there. There is a trend coming up in the summer with a one shoulder cut. What are some things that you predict? Let's see Sophie's like psychic predictions.
Well, for one, I think, speaking of Coachella, it used to be the more you could put on is the better. And now I think it's much more streamlined. There were those big like warrior necklaces, like those you remember like those metal chokers or lots of crystals. And I think now a lot of the street style stars are layering kind of more delicate pieces. I think delicate jewelry is big now for spring and summer. Less fringe now for festival and more kind of airy, ethereal pieces, I think, are big this year. Yeah, but that was an interesting picture of her.
Yeah,
I think I had seen that one. And I think it's actually, I'm surprised because those are it's not what I would have expected for the trends this year. But she can wear anything. She's tall and, and small, so it's fine.
Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, Sophie. I've had a blast talking beauty, style, everything, social media, and more. We all know that this is the last Judy Tuesdays of the season, and I want to give you guys a big Elkis goodbye. Get it? Follow us on CUATUSC on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and also follow Sophie at Sophie Elkus on Instagram, and stay tuned for more. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you guys for joining us on today's first episode of Balance